Speaking of brutal honesty, we turn now to Josh Rosen's interview with Bleacher Report. The UCLA quarterback said that football and school don't go together. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do two full-time jobs. He also said, quote, raise the SAT requirement at Alabama and see what kind of team they have, end quote. Bo, what do you make of Mr. Rosen's comments
All
there?
right, let's start here. Josh Rosen has an uncommon level of exposure for any young man his age, let alone one who is playing football.
Yes.
He's really bright, he's really well-read, and he expresses these things very clearly. He's going to wish he had the Alabama line back because he's going to hear from a whole lot of Paul who are not going to be happy that they threw that name in there. But his point was this one. If you have any barrier to playing football, any exclusionary measure to whittle out the field that isn't directly related to football, then the football is going to be worse, right? If you told every Nobel Prize winner they had to run a 40-yard dash, we'd have fewer Nobel Prize winners if you took them out for not running a 4.7, right? So what he's saying there is correct, and everything that he has to say there adds up. It's so much work to be a college football player in the big time in this day and age. To do that and be a truly dedicated student in the way the NCAA would like us to believe their guys are, you are asking for a lot, and it is two full-time jobs if you're trying to do either one of them right.
No, and the SAT thing, I think there is a shock value there, but Harvard would say this about Stanford, which would say this about Northwestern, which would say this about UCLA, which would say this about Alabama. One of the things we do weirdly in college sports when it comes to academics is judge these guys in a way that we wouldn't judge, for instance, musicians. We let in all sorts of musicians to all sorts of fancy schools, and they can't do much of anything besides play music. We let in a lot of writers who can't do much of anything besides write. Mathematicians who cannot write but love math and do math. That is okay. The question, though, is what happens in terms of the mission, right? Where on that gradient between extracurriculars and academics do you lie bespeaks what kind of a school you want to be. And one of the things we got to realize when it comes to paying athletes with education is if the education degrades, if they are out of school, if they're off campus, and all they got to do is go to practice before anything else, well, they're getting paid in something that's substandard.
Right, that's the issue, because job one is to go to practice, right? The other thing is if you're giving someone an education they are not prepared to indulge in, right? If you are not prepared for the education that provides, you are effectively handing somebody soup and a knife and saying to have at it. Like that is what's happening in a lot of places. But the bottom line is the decision has been made. These football teams are necessary on the scale on which they are necessary for the larger promotion of the institution. It is not to enrich the academic environment. That's not the purpose that those guys serve. The problem is we like the narrative of college. We like all the stories that surround it. So we need to pretend the guys are students. A lot of them are. A lot of them are not. They're there, and more importantly, they know that they are there to play football. They are very aware that that's the reason they're on campus in the first place. And if that's the reason why you're there, that's where your focus is going to be.
And they know that because they happen to be the only students we talk about publicly.
Yes, yes.
That's a pretty good indicator that that's what actually is most important to your life.
Got it.